I'm back. I can't believe I'm back today, but I am. I got, an emergency gossip call. Serious. I feel like, pew, pew. So this is exclusive gossip I'm about to deliver. Special thanks.
My good friend, your moms are watching, Thea.
Is my good friend, and I adore her. All right, let's do this. So we wanted to find out what the hell the deal was with this pizza thing, because it just wasn't adding up. Thea and I discussed it a few times, and I was like, this does not make any sense, what they're saying on The Real Housewives of New Jersey. They must think we're idiots. And I said, I've been trying to piece this together for the fans, and we're just missing something.
So I put on my detective hat, and I contacted a few people that I know in New Jersey in the know. And so did Thea.
I just want to tell you guys the story. I don't care, you can vote for whoever you want and be on whoever's team. My job is to give you the information so you can decide where you stand on it, right? So I don't like when I have half a story, because it could be leaning in the direction of a person that it shouldn't. In this particular case, I'm going to tell you two stories. One from Teresa and Luis Ruelas' side, and one from Joe Gorga and Melissa Gorga's side. And you could decide where you'd like to fall on that. But here's the details of what really went on between the Gorgas and Luis Ruelas and Teresa. Okay, so Joe Gorga gets this idea. And the idea is to buy pizza ovens from a really cool contact in China that makes pizza ovens that can be designed any way that you want to look, and you could put them on your kitchen counter. Okay. So what Joe had planned was selling kind of Real Housewives of New Jersey pizza ovens, just slightly branded. Think of like the Joe Foreman grill in a way, right? Where you're like, this is a great device that I don't have for my kitchen. And also it has like a subtle branding towards New Jersey. So his thing was, we'll sell these to the different Bravo fans, right? And they'll put the pizzas in their kitchens on the counter. But then the really big part of the money aspect of this was that we will then put people on subscriptions that buy these pizza ovens, and they can get all the ingredients to make this extraordinary pizza that Joe Gorga had tried. And he was like, oh my God, this is the best pizza I've ever had. So he was like, I'm going to work with them to put that dream of only getting this pizza here into everybody's kitchen, so they could make my favorite pizza in their kitchen. And we're going to brand it after Nona, and it's going to honor him. And that's really great. And then he thinks, okay, so this is the business. This is what he wants to do. He reaches out to Teresa with it because he wants to do it with his sister, because of course it's about their father. And obviously the two of them together as a team is stronger than the one alone. So Joe brings to Luis Ruelas and Teresa the idea and says, let's go 50-50 on it. I have a manufacturer in China that will make the pizza ovens for a price point that it will make sense for people to buy them, and we can make a good markup. In addition to that, I've got the pizza place that can put the different little kits together that we'll send to people's house with the subscriptions, and then we could probably make different kinds of this, okay? So Louis and Joe seem to be on point with this, and everything, it looks good. They put the order in. Now, the pizza ovens cost $104,802.50 for one container. That was $46.25 per unit times 2,266 ovens, a total of $104,802.50. So Luis Ruelas paid Joe Gorga's nephew the money. Joe Gorga's nephew has connections to Chinese manufacturers, not Joe Gorga. Louis pays the nephew. So the nephew, I guess, places the order, and from what we understand, the pizza ovens were delivered to the U.S. and were delivered to Luis Ruelas' house with Teresa, and those ovens sit there to this day at Luis Ruelas' house. Now, I'm not at Luis Ruelas' house, unfortunately, although it looks lovely. So I cannot confirm if Luis Ruelas actually received the pizza ovens, but I've been told by a pretty reliable source, as you could probably gather from the receipt I just showed you, that the ovens were indeed sent to Luis Ruelas' house, and he did receive them. So unless I hear from Teresa or Louis otherwise, I'm going to assume that they got the ovens. So it's really not fair to say that Joe took $250,000 from Luis Ruelas when, as you just saw, it was only $104,000, and he got something for the money he paid, which was the purpose of the money, which was the pizza ovens. Just saying, okay? Now, you may be wondering, well, what the hell was the other $146,000 that Teresa said went missing? Because you can see in this article, Teresa Giudice claims Luis Ruelas lost $250,000 in Joe Gorga business deals. So we've been able to establish that $104,000 was paid by Luis Ruelas to Joe's nephew, right? But what about the remaining money that they're claiming is gone missing, right? Or lost? Well, what I've been told is that there was a website designed that Luis Ruelas paid for, some photography work that was paid for, and makeup, and to do a photo shoot. That was also some money that he perceives that he lost. I'll explain why he feels it's lost in a minute. And this is all to do with the pizza deal. I love pizza. Okay, so there's two takes on this part of the story. One take is that Teresa and Louis inflated the amount of the loss to make it more interesting for the show and press, or round it up to make it easy. The other way to look at it is that they indeed did lose that much money and were missing some elements that, hard costs that we're not aware of that I didn't just list off. I would probably say too that, could it be that Luis Ruelas created a self-fulfilling prophecy about this loss by kind of blowing the deal and trying to change the terms, and he wouldn't have lost the money, the $250 in the business deal, if he had just stuck to what Joe and him originally agreed and not try to change it. Just want to throw that in. Now, the next part of this story is, well, wait a minute. What about the $25,000 loss that Luis Ruelas had to do with the niece and the blow bar? Remember that, Dana? You just talked about that with Housewife Historian the other day on your live. Well, it turns out that that was all made up. Not all of it, but a lot of it. The truth is, I think it was made up because people didn't want to trace it back to the original source. So they altered key information so that it would tell the story, but without making it so it could get tied back to the person. But I'm not going to do that today because it's not what I do. So here's what I'm going to tell you. There was no blow bar. It's not about the niece. It's about the nephew. Again, the same nephew that was involved in the pizza business deal. So the Gorgas nephew has a successful mattress and pillow company. And that's how he has his contacts in China, from, I guess, manufacturing stuff there and then selling it in the U.S. and, his company. So it turns out that Luis Ruelas and the nephew were talking about doing some sort of partnership regarding the mattress and pillow business that the nephew has already established. And Luis Ruelas paid $25,000 to the nephew, separate to the pizza stuff, to build a website and other, components, so that I believe Luis Ruelas could use his role at DMS to, they're a big marketing agency and they do lead generation, to maybe get a bunch of leads to feed through to sell more pillows and mattresses. So it does make sense, right? The guy's got the manufacturing down. Louis an expert marketer. So Louis figures, I'll pay you some money to take a percentage of something in your company and I'll make a lot of sales of pillows and mattresses using my digital marketing expertise, and also maybe, housewives, who knows that part. I'm speculating, but to be able to generate lots of leads to sell these mattresses and pillows. So the kid takes the money and does the deal, but then allegedly the deal terms change, much like what happened in the pizza deal with Joe Gorga. So that deal falls apart. From what I understand, that $25,000 was not returned and is still in dispute, and Louis and the nephew are trying to figure out what to do about it. And so we can't really, finish that story quite yet. We have to see, does Louis demand his money back? The $25,000 certainly not worth going to court over. Does the nephew want to keep things good and just returns it and doesn't want problems? Is it like a standoff? What the hell happens here? Or does it, does Louis just take a lawsuit to punish the kid? Like, I don't know what's going to happen, right? So we'll leave that up there in the air.
What is the deal with $25,000 anyway? It just follows me, man.
Now let's go back to the pizza deal for a minute. What you guys heard so far about the pizza deal in terms of the falling out between Luis Ruelas and Joe Gorga is pretty right, but it makes a lot more sense now that you know the business deal. Essentially, Luis Ruelas was like, I will bring cash and I will bring my marketing and, Teresa's branding to the table. And Joe Gorga was like, I will bring the pizza contact that can do the kits, the pizza oven that my nephew has the contacts in China to do it cheap, and I will be like on the day-to-day of the work. And in return for 50%, and we'll be 50-50 partners. Now, the idea was 100% Joe Gorga's idea, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, and he approached Teresa with this whole thing. The way that the hijacking kind of happened was that Luis Ruelas began to take meetings with Joe's vendors and contacts, including his nephew, without really including him in on it, and sort of ran with the idea. And then not only did he run with the idea that Joe had presented, he started changing it in significant ways. What ways? He started changing the look of the oven to be branded very differently. He started, instead of having it being about great pizza and Nona, it was now going to be about weight loss and quality organic and healthy ingredients. And it was going to be Teresa, kind of the front woman of it all, versus like Joe and the Gorga family. So that was obviously a big shift, and Joe wasn't included in those conversations. So he felt like, he felt that Louis was operating intentionally to push him out and do things behind his back.
The controversy that came up last year with Kanye West and Gap, but instead it's Joe Gorga and Luis Ruelas over pizza. And you get the right idea.
So the crescendo happens when Luis Ruelas kind of ghosts Joe, who's trying to get a hold of him about this whole thing. And then he finally gets a hold of him, and Luis Ruelas says, listen, I think I just want to do this and run the show and do most everything, and I'll just give you 5% instead of 50%, but I'll take it over. And Joe was like, I don't want 5%, and his feelings were hurt, and he wasn't thinking like a businessman. And to be honest, he should have a manager negotiating this, so it doesn't get personal. That's how the big people do it. But needless to say, Joe, was very hurt. So they get into a really bad call. I think Joe threatens to visit Louis or something really old school. It hangs up. Then Louis calls him back and says, listen, let's do 10%, trying to make it better. Joe is still hurt. He won't hear it. He's like, no.
So Joe was like, I don't want any part of the business. You do it yourself. It's all yours.
But I don't think Louis really wanted to do it all himself, honestly. So then Louis blamed Joe for not wanting to do, bring the whole idea to fruition with him anymore at this lower percentage, and basically said that it was all a loss because he didn't want to do the pizza thing really, truly deep down inside without someone kind of running it. So That's it. And Joe, I don't think was really going to run the day-to-day operations, but he was probably going to have family members do it and then oversee it. Anyway, that's where it ended. Yeah, but I mean, to say that 250,000 was lost with Joe Gorga is kind of really oversimplifying it, I think, to be fair. And Teresa's Louis did put money into these businesses and hasn't gotten the value probably that he expected, which, was probably pretty high because cash is king in any business deal, to be fair to him and to Teresa. Now, I'm a brand endorsement expert. I've done thousands of deals in my jobs that I've done, and I've worked for celebrities. And my suggestion is to both of them, free advice, that they should sell the ovens in a company that they are 50-50 partners in, and then each family should have their own pizza kits with their own branding that they distribute through subscription, through the new distribution channel that they just set up by selling these pizza ovens to people and promoting their different pizza kits with them, because that's what they're essentially doing. And then people can choose if they want to go skinny team Teresa or if they want to go Nona, best pizza in New Jersey, Joe Gorga. Each pizza kit would be owned by a company owned by the individual family. That way there's no problems there. And, each family has 100% of that company. And then let the fans decide which family they want to make rich by buying their pizza. And that, my friends, is how it's done. You might be wondering, why didn't any of this come out in the show? And good question, because all of this was said on the show, but they didn't use the footage for some reason. Ooh, I wonder why. Oh, I think I know. So one last piece of detail that you need to know is that Luis Ruelas and Joe Gorga did this business deal back in November of 2020, and both agreed to keep it off Real Housewives of New Jersey season 12. And Joe was going to continue to keep it off the show because he didn't want, to aggravate things further than they already were. And then Teresa and Luis Ruelas decided to out it and release it. And so that is why Joe Gorga is responding to it. So that's it. He did keep it secret until they didn't.
Leave it or not.
Now, I did a video a few months ago where I talked about Frank Catania Jr., who's working with Luis Ruelas, and I think it was a mortgage company or something. I just wonder how all that's going. I hope not like this. Okay, you guys, like, subscribe, and hit the notification button, and join the Patreon. It's only $6 a month, and it allows me to continue to do the Lord's work.